What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the first ever edition of Tuman Talkin Touchdowns here on the Tuman Talkin Sports YouTube channel. You might be able to guess it, but I am your host, Joe Tuman, and I am very excited to be talking some NFL. You know, I'm a big football fan. I'm always talking basketball on my podcast, but I want to start investing a little more into the NFL because I've been a huge fan of football my whole life. Joining me on this first episode, very frequent podcast partner of mine, radio host partner of mine, Chris Reynolds, joining me here to talk some football. Chris, thank you for joining me on this inaugural episode.
I'm so excited to be here, Joseph. We have a long history of talking sports together. And then, you know, it's like a bat signal. It's like Joe's starting a new podcast. I see it in the light. And I'm like, that's me. I'm coming, Joe, for the debut episode. Excited to be here. Excited to talk some football. Haven't gotten to talk it in a while. You sent me a text. You're like, hey, you free for the podcast? I'm like, I will be. I will make time. This is number one priority in my life right now. I'm excited.
I appreciate that. So yeah, we're very excited for this NFL season to start get going. We got what, 5-6 weeks before opening kickoff, and today we're just going to kind of start broad. We're going to be talking 10 key storylines we have our eyes on going into the NFL season, and we're just going to go back and forth. We're each going to give 5 and just kind of talk about why we think that's, you know, a really important part of this upcoming NFL season. Chris, just as my guest, let me know what you're thinking. You can start.
All right, cool. Well, you know, I was trying to look at like things, and I wanted some broad and some specific, but I'll keep it like more general for now. I'll start with this one, and this one is low key my favorite. All right, did this Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, Herbert generation of quarterbacks, did they peak? Are they done? Are we on the other side of that? Because back in my day, they were like the cool quarterbacks who were like every year you're guessing one of them was going to win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I don't really feel like any of them are going to win a Super Bowl. Like even like Josh Allen, still love Josh Allen. But I don't think the Bills are winning. I think they have a lot of holes in their team. Look at Mahomes. He's coming off an injured year. And then the Chiefs are kind of on the decline. The Ravens, I mean, Lamar had his first like real bad year last year. That's, you know, a lot of injury based, but Ravens had a lot of new coach, fired their coach. Burrow just seems like the Bengals have not been able to figure out in forever. Herbert is just a loser human being who disrespects media people. This wave of quarterbacks that was like our, you know, group. And the way I phrased it was like, did they get passed as like the new kids on the block or the new kids 2024 draft and more recent? Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Cam Ward, Fernando Mendoza, Tyler Shuck. Not that those names are all bigger than Josh Allen. Not saying they're bigger, but saying like, this is now like this. If you're new to football, you might be like, oh, look at these young fun guys. And it seems like our young fun guys are now like 30 and some of them are already on the decline. Do we have a new wave of quarterbacks kind of like emerging while like this group that was our group is now going to look like Breeze, Brady, and Peyton Manning, you know, 10 years ago, and now we're going to like transition? That's what I think is very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to bring up. I didn't have that on my list, so I'm glad we have some different categories. I did write down, though, just to talk about Patrick Mahomes coming off his ACL tear. I mean, I think that's the biggest out of all those names. You know, he's the guy who's been the premier player in the NFL for nearly a decade now. And just to see, like, what is his recovery going to be like? He's expected to play week 1, but just, you know, is he going to have the same spark he had? We've seen Lamar Jackson last season kind of take a step back. He didn't run as much as he used to. He wasn't as efficient as he's been in the past. Now he had John Harbaugh his whole career. It's the first time he's going to have a different head coach. Just how will that affect him? Josh Allen's the one that seems to still be Josh Allen. He seems to still be at his peak. But like you mentioned, the Bills on paper, I mean, they don't seem like they're ready to. They didn't make the tangible improvements that you would hope, and they continue to not be able to get over the hump. So just, I'm with you in that. I'm wondering if those guys' best seasons could be behind them, at least from an individual standpoint. I think a lot of the thing is that a lot of these younger quarterbacks, we still have to see, like, can they take that next step? You know, I think Caleb Williams is a guy who's getting a lot of hype this year. He's connecting with maybe some younger fans. He's on the Madden cover, things like that. But, you know, maybe I'm biased as a Green Bay fan, but I think he still has a lot of things to work out. Drake May, you know, he had a great season, but then he kind of got embarrassed in the postseason. What can he do from here? I think that those guys are still the premier quarterbacks, and they probably, like, kind of like you mentioned with Breeze and Brady, and I'll throw Aaron Rodgers in there. Like, those guys into their mid to late 30s were still at the top of their position. Stafford right now is another one. I still think the class, you know, that top tier of quarterbacks, that top class, like, I think they still got a few years of being at the top, but at the
Yeah.
same time, we might never see Patrick Mahomes throw 38 touchdowns again, or his 150 touchdown year everybody always thinks about. Like, that might not be coming back. We might never see Lamar Jackson rush for 1,000 yards again in a season. That might never happen again. And we didn't even talk about Joe Burrow, but I mean, he gets hurt routinely, and the Bengals haven't made the playoffs in 3 seasons now. So I think it's an interesting question, though, because if these guys aren't going to be, the MVP level seasons they've had in the past, or maybe they will, but it doesn't seem like it's going that way. It's like, who's going to take that, who's going to step into those shoes as the top young quarterbacks in the league? And I think that's what we don't know the answer to, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I think too, like, part of it is like, I feel like we're gonna have more time with these guys. I think a lot of them do rely a lot on their athleticism. Like, look at Lamar; he's probably not gonna age the most gracefully. I think Josh Allen hasn't really, like we said, he hasn't dipped yet, but he's a guy that relies a lot on running. Mahomes, after another leg injury now, it's like second. But he runs a little bit, but probably less now. And it's like, I just don't see them getting better, and none of them have won yet, besides Mahomes. That's kind of the other thing. At least with like Brady, obviously won a lot. Rodgers won a ring, Breeze won a ring, Manning won 2, Roethlisberger won, even Eli Manning won 2. It's like a lot of those guys from that generation, they kind of spread the wealth a little bit. Here, it's been a lot different. And like, Sam Darnold, not counting this group, like, he wasn't, in this wave. And even this year, if the Rams win, it's going to Stafford. He's above this group age-wise. So I just don't see like a world where any of these teams, I think the only one that could realistically win the Super Bowl is probably the Bills. I don't think the Ravens, Chargers, or Chiefs are going to win this year. Definitely not the Bengals. So, like, that's the thing, is like, we have these guys probably at the end of their primes. It feels like we kind of missed out on some of them having like this great success.
I mean, there's a ton of bad playoff losses for Buffalo and Baltimore over these past couple years. I mean, the Bengals made a Super Bowl, but they ran into that Rams team. And I think Josh Allen, because he's still so great, I mean, to me, he's the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the year where you mentioned you don't think any of these teams could win a Super Bowl, but, Buffalo, as much as I think that they're worse than they've been in previous seasons in terms of their roster construction, I look at the AFC and it's kind of wide open, right? Like, I don't necessarily know if New England's going to go back-to-back AFC Championship appearances, and then from there, like, Denver's probably the other team you're looking at, just because, they could have maybe have gotten there if Bo Nix doesn't get hurt last year, but Josh Allen's a much better quarterback than Bo Nix. So, can he unlock that offense? Can, like, him and James Cook just carry that offense to a Super Bowl appearance? I don't think it's out of the picture, just because I think the AFC at the top is weaker this year, but I agree with you. It's like, you're not inclined to predict that at the same time, because I feel like we've seen Bills teams that are much more impressive, at least with the name, the talent, all that. I think for Josh, this is a very good opportunity for him to kind of, reshape his legacy here. Not that, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's been a top quarterback for a while, but just in terms of getting over the hump, and football is the ultimate team sport, so I'm not saying it's always on him, but just, you want to see him at least make a Super Bowl. And I think maybe this could be the year, but I mean, I don't have a Super Bowl prediction just yet. I haven't delved into like all 32 teams and finalized my predictions, but I'm not going to guarantee a Buffalo Bills Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah, that's the only one, but it's just this whole thought of like, it used to feel like these guys were like upcoming guys that were all like great on great teams. And I don't know, I just thought like the whole changing of the guard in the NFL. Not like these guys are better, but I think their teams might be, which is kind of crazy.
And I think it's worth, I'll ask you one more question about that. Is there any of those younger quarterbacks that you think, this year or 2 years from now, like, could jump into this top tier and maybe pass a Lamar or a Burrow in our, the proverbial rankings?
Yeah, I think of my list, the 3 that I actually was like, yes, and the other ones were kind of like more stretches of like, maybe. But the 3 great ones are like, obviously Caleb. Saw it last year and like, all right, he could really do something. And he's in a great situation. I would say Drake May. He literally came second MVP voting. I know they're going to have a weird year ahead of them, but I still think they have a good structure there. And then the third is, if Jaden Daniels is healthy, 2 years ago, I was ready to go into war for that man. I loved him.
Yeah.
This year just got injured with that elbow thing. It was like a freak thing that happened. And then despite their season being over, they had him playing, and then he threw a pick, and then they trucked him to the ground, and then he hurt his like already broken wrist. Why was he playing? I don't know. Anyways, if he can be healthy, I think him and Caleb and Drake May could be like Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. And then those other guys, maybe, some emerge, but I think, worst case, are just like, decent quarterbacks that are good. And then I think a lot of the NFL lately has been like less reliant on a quarterback and more about like systems and schemes and play calling and stuff.
That's kind of like that 2004 draft with Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers. I mean, Phillip Rivers never, won a Super Bowl, but just kind of like three elite quarterbacks coming in. I feel like there is similarities to those three.
Yeah.
And all three of those guys that I mentioned from 2004, they had very different careers. And I kind of feel the same way about those three guys you just named.
Even like Bo Nix was in there too, which is like crazy. Yeah. 2024 was the draft. So it's Caleb, followed by literally number 2 is Jaden Daniels. 3 is Drake May. Yeah. You still have Marvin Harrison 4, who's decent. Like that draft was great. And then, sorry, Michael Penix, I'm not going to include you on the future faces of the NFL list. I forgot J.J. McCarthy. Great one, Joe.
Oh yeah, we'll see if Kevin O'Connell can turn him around.
I don't think so. Bro, they have 3 stars at the top of that. I would add Bo Nix as a good quarterback, and then we were kind of promised this that year that we had like the Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, C.J. Stroud, or not C.J. Stroud. Who was it?
That's Lawrence.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. Like he's the only one that's been
actually
decent.
We didn't mention him. I mean, what he showed last year out of anyone. I mean,
yeah. I didn't know where to group him because he felt younger, but I also wouldn't even say he's like a future. But it was Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Kyle Pitts, who like now is okay, but like at the time that was like a rough disappointment of the first 4 picks. But and then Justin Fields, like that was like, and Mac Jones, that was supposed to be like the new wave of quarterbacks that were like a little refresher. That kind of failed, but luckily 2024 brought us some good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Drake May, one of my questions was just, I wanted to talk about, like, can the Patriots overcome this Super Bowl hangover that everyone's kind of worried about? This has kind of been, I feel like, a topic, really, I think, ever since, I think we had the combo of what happened with Stephon Diggs, and he's now unsigned, and they wound up getting different receivers to come in, and then everything that happened with Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini just being a huge distraction. Ultimately, I think it's fair to say that I don't think it's going to affect the football product of the Patriots that much, but it is a media circus that, has kind of made the Patriots one of the most talked about teams in this offseason, and maybe for the wrong reasons. But my question, Chris, is like, I'm not worried about that. That's kind of happened. We know what happened with that. I'm more worried about just the actual nature of the team that loses the Super Bowl, especially the way they did in such, let's face it, embarrassing fashion. Can they replicate the season that they had? They're going from a last place schedule last year to a first place schedule this year. There is some positives that we can get into of what they did this offseason, but I went back and looked at the last 10 Super Bowl losers. 5 of them missed the playoffs, and then you have a couple other ones like the 2023 Eagles. They kind of got embarrassed in the first round after losing in the Super Bowl. And it was really the Patriots. They lost the Super Bowl. They went back and won it the year after. The Bengals, they lost the Super Bowl, made the AFC title game a year after. But relatively speaking, the team that loses the Super Bowl takes somewhat, if not a large step back the year after. So, Chris, I'm curious what you think of that. We were just talking about the Bills.
Yep.
And we feel that the AFC might be a little open, but they do have to contend with the reigning AFC champion in their division. Just, do you think the Patriots are going to be one of these teams that's plagued by that, the Super Bowl hangover that everybody talks about?
This was one of my storylines, so we have to add another one later to get to 10. But I just wrote Patriots all-time year from hell team, ? And I do think it's going to be a lot because I don't know what Vrabel's doing right now. Like, I'm sure like when he's coaching, it's about, the team and everything like that. But it's a lot to like do while also navigating everything else right now.
Yeah.
And then Drake May, during the regular season, vibes were immaculate. During the playoffs, vibes were definitely not that. It came pretty negative towards the end towards him. And it was like, all right, like, he didn't play great in the playoffs or Super Bowl. He had to finish second in regular season for MVP voting and then, still got them to the Super Bowl in a way. So like it shouldn't be as negative as it is, but it felt worse for them. Also, too, just have to mention this. They had one of the easiest schedules last year. Now they have one of the hardest schedules. That's a big difference. I think just a lot of the time Super Bowl hangover is just like, oh, your schedule's a lot harder this year. And a lot of it is just like, who do you match up with? Oh, cool. You got the Texans. You got Jared Stidham and the Broncos. That's a large reason why they went so far. So it's like they will regress because you're due to do that with with a harder schedule. That's what I'm guessing. But with all this going on, you need someone that can really, smooth things over, be a good locker room guy, and they get AJ Brown.
Right.
I don't know if that's the missing piece that they needed. I do think he's a great receiver. I think if the attention wasn't elsewhere off the field, I think AJ Brown joining would have been a huge, awesome, let's go. He'll be happy. Vibes were great again.
Mm-hmm.
But now it just feels like you're adding chaos into more chaos right now. I'm sure they'll be decent and well coached still. But Drake May has this bad feeling right now around him. AJ Brown's definitely been in a, bit of a disaster chemistry-wise. Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to help. It's just a lot going on. I think that just all leads to a down year. And then next year, they'll have an easier schedule and they'll have, better team that's back focused to whatever.
Yeah. My thing is, I'm almost inclined to take a positive spin on this and think that maybe they can overcome this, swirl of all this media attention on them. You mentioned AJ Brown, and obviously he was, the biggest drama queen in the NFL last season. But we kind of always knew he wanted to go to New England. He's been coached by Mike Vrabel before. Everyone was kind of shocked when he got traded. I don't think it was something that the Titans, coaches and players wanted at the time. Now those guys are back together. So I'm hoping maybe there's a connection there that allows AJ Brown. Sometimes we've seen these big personality receivers when they go to a new team for that first couple years, they're usually happy, and then maybe they want a new contract or they want a bigger role as they're getting older, and then it causes some problems. I'm hoping that, AJ Brown going to a new situation is kind of going to elevate him. The Patriots offense last year was, it was top 5 in efficiency, red zone efficiency. Drake May was towards the top of the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. And that was with the receiving room that we thought was pretty mediocre. Now he has A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs, who's a pretty consistent number 2 receiver. I think he's an upgrade. Coming over from my Packers, he's proven in the playoffs that he shows up. And then, Travion Henderson, a year older, Will Campbell, a year older. On paper, you would think this team is progressing forward. But you mentioned it, just with all the, the Super Bowl loss they had, the drama with AJ Brown, the drama with Mike Vrabel, and you mentioned the schedule. They're going to be playing a first place schedule against the NFC North and the AFC West, 2 really tough divisions. Can they stack the wins? Can they make the improvements necessary to continue to be contenders? I think on paper, if this was a video game and we're simulating it, they'd continue to get better. It's just like we kind of laid out. Can the personalities mesh, and can they put the tough moments from last season behind them?
Yeah, I think you could add in like last year they had Stephon Diggs, not the easiest chemistry guy in the team. But when everything else is in line and structured around it, you can somewhat contain that and then have a great football product on the field and minimize everything else. On paper, it should be great. This is where the human element of sports comes in, where it's sometimes we just have these things where it's the year after the Eagles lost, the team was still great. It just chemistry was off. That could happen again this year for Patriots, and we'll see. I think we're going to be able to tell right away. I do think the schedule thing is a huge, huge factor. Hey, you're not playing the whole NFC South anymore. Let's go. So we'll see how they recover. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be great.
They get 4 games against the Jets and the Dolphins. That's going to help them, but,
True. It always helps. I always forget about that.
I think they're going to be a team that it really could go either way. And I think if they do, we were just talking about those quarterbacks who can be the next, top tier quarterbacks. If Drake May puts together an identical season to last year, then, he's already entering top 5 quarterback discussions, because that would be super impressive if he can weather the storm.
Yeah, it's he definitely is, based on last year, was one of the most exciting quarterbacks, most promising. that all kind of felt like it got tarnished with the playoffs last year. And it's like,
Yeah.
is it the weather? Is it the fact they're playing better defenses? It's hard to know like what's real, what's not. So we'll see. We'll see. I do think he's obviously a really good quarterback. So
Yeah.
time will tell.
Yeah, for sure. So what's your next topic you got?
All right. I don't want you to steal this one. So I'm going to say this one now. What is happening in the AFC South? Are any of these teams actually good?
That's a great question.
We got the Texans who probably felt like they could have easily made it to the Super Bowl. Might have the best defense in the league.
Yeah.
Also CJ Stroud, who they don't know if they like yet. You have the Jaguars, who, had a good last season, a good promising year with a new coach.
Mm-hmm.
Lost to the Bills in a game that felt like they probably could have, should have won. You have the Colts, who started off as the best team in the NFL last year at an all-time success, and then completely fell apart by the end. And they re-signed, or they gave Daniel Jones a big deal. And then the Titans, who people seem to really be in on this year, with the new coach, new offensive coordinator, Cam Ward second year, and Carnell Tate, should be a good young receiver. Yeah. Don't know if any of the teams are good or if they all suck. I have no idea what to make of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the AFC South of old. This is what we grew up with. I mean, for maybe 1 or 2 years there, it seemed like it was starting to be really competitive, and now it's just kind of a hodgepodge. I would lean that Jacksonville is the best team in this division. I think I trust Liam Cohen as a play caller a lot, and I think I honestly think Trevor Lawrence, he had so much talent coming out. He's one of the most hyped college quarterbacks to be drafted into the league, and he just was in such a bad situation with bad coaching, and I think he finally, he showed it last year too. I think he's finally starting to settle into a really stable situation on offense, and that gives me hope for this Jacksonville team to continue to get better. Adam Sheets would like to hear that because the past couple of years I've said the opposite, but I think Liam Cohen came in and kind of proved, I know there were certain issues in that Bills playoff game, but I think generally speaking, he proved that he was the right man to be hired for that team. Now, they did lose Travis Etienne, not Etienne, Travis Etienne. So they're going to have to, rely on Baishal Tutin and Chris Rodriguez, who's on my dynasty team. So I'm hoping he has a bit of a breakout in that Liam Cohen run scheme, but just a lot of weapons on that offense. And you kind of mentioned CJ Stroud. I mean, he had a disastrous playoff performance last year against New England. And it's kind of an offense-defense thing with those two teams. You look at Houston, and Will Anderson was second place to... The only reason Will Anderson wasn't Defensive Player of the Year last year was because Myles Garrett set the NFL sack record. Will Anderson had an amazing season, and you go on down the line with that Houston team, and ultimately that offense is a little underwhelming, even with Nico Collins. So my inclination is that Jacksonville is actually a team that can contend. I mentioned it before, but I'd probably trust Josh Allen. I'd probably trust Denver, but Jacksonville could be right in that mix for the Super Bowl. The Titans and Colts we'd be going down a wormhole of talking about those teams because they've got a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Well, you got to say the Colts, Joe. If they have Daniel Jones back, last year were the greatest team when he was healthy. They had Jonathan Taylor running great, and they have a decent defense. They traded for Sauce Gardner. They made a win now move.
Yeah,
didn't work out, but they have a win now team.
Yeah,
they got to be mentioned too. It's they were the best team in the league last year for half the season, and then they completely fell apart.
I just get bad vibes with them. Daniel Jones has had a few significant injuries now. Alec Pierce, who they just gave a bunch of money for, is already injured. Michael Pittman is gone. I don't know. Tyler Warren's really good though. We know that, but I don't see it with the Colts. I think they had their moment, and unfortunately, they just had some bad luck.
I also think too, what scares me with the Jags last year, their first round pick was Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Didn't give us much, and then this year they didn't have their pick. So that's now 2 drafts in a row where it's all right. You had one pick in 2 years, and it's a guy who I don't know if he plays on offense or defense, coming off an injury.
But this is the issue with Jacksonville is their front office typically is pretty up and down, which is why I think last year when we were talking about them, you were higher on them than me. I was I don't like what they did, but then Liam Cohen was a good hire, and it worked out.
Well, I just think if you look at the history of most teams, it's why were they good? Oh, they just nailed a few drafts in a row. And then, why did they start to suck? Oh, they missed on a few drafts in a row. Sure. The Jags, no, I mean, they could hit a later, but no first-round picks this year. It looks like last year, I would say a disappointment at the very least if you trade a future pick and then you get Travis Hunter, who like hasn't really been great at either side of the ball. So it's just like, oh, that's not great. That's like, if you look at the Saints, their 2017 draft was one of the greatest drafts in NFL history that they had, and that led to them competing through 2020. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of started whiffing the next few years after that, and then that led to them being terrible now. Now they're starting to get better, but last year was like, and the year before they started to have like decent drafts again. Like the Jags, I think like gave me some trepidation because it's like they're kind of very much win now right now, and if they like I don't know, unless Travis Hunter becomes amazing, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot of receivers. Thomas, your guy, Jacoby Myers,
Parker Washington's really good for them.
Yeah, he had a great year. So that would be my answer. I think there is a good team in the AFC South. I think it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, but we'll see.
I think they're the most normal team. I want to say they're the best because I'd rather honestly be Houston, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the best unit on the field, probably in anything. Offense or defense-wise, I think Houston's defense is probably the best unit. Mm-hmm. And even the Seahawks were probably like, they were different, but I think they were really good defensively, but they lost a lot of pieces. The Texans just kind of kept everyone. They actually drafted like more defense. So it's like, all right, good luck scoring on them. And they played normal defense and they just beat up guys. And if you could have great accuracy throwing it on the sideline, making a toe tap and catch, great. If you can't, you're probably not going to score many points against the Texans because their defense is filthy.
Yeah, no, their secondary is unreal. I agree. We've been talking a lot about the AFC. I want to go over to the NFC, and I want to start with our defending champion, Seattle Seahawks, and then their arch rival, the Rams. And it's just, can the Rams unseat the Seahawks? Can Matthew Stafford kind of go out with a second Super Bowl? All of a sudden, we're going to have to be having some very uncomfortable conversations about Matthew Stafford's legacy if that were to happen. I mean, they added 30-year-old Myles Garrett in the prime of his career, coming off a 23-sack NFL record season. They also brought in Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs, one of the better young corners in the NFL. And they still got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, who I think is the best coach in the NFL. Seattle, meanwhile, they lost Clint Kubiak, who, great play caller for them. Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, is with the Chiefs. Their other running back, Charbonnet, is injured. I know they drafted Jadarian Price in the first round, but the guys who've been there are hurt. They lost a couple defensive guys from the Super Bowl team. So, Chris, I just putting it simply like that. Do you think the Rams can unseat the Seahawks as NFC West champions, but maybe even Super Bowl champions?
I think the Rams are just a ticking time bomb with all these older players, and then the only non-old player is Puka, who has more injuries than any of them. You have Stafford, who was great last year. He's quite old. He always has a broken back, and it seems like every preseason, like he's like falling apart. And then last year, he was great. Was the best quarterback in the NFL probably. But in the preseason, they were like, "Oh yeah, he's walking again on the practice," and it's like, "Oh, I'd hope so." Yeah, I didn't know he had a broken back. Like it seemed like really bad. And then Puka started the year off in rehab, and then good for him. Football wise, a little concerning. It's like he's dealing with a lot. And then you have Devontae Adams, who is great. If you're on the 1 yard line, Devontae Adams is probably the number one pick of who you want to throw the ball to. But he too's an older receiver. So they have a lot that's like old, but still great with Stafford and Devontae, and Puka's like the oldest 20-something-year-old I've ever seen. Well, they just got Myles Garrett, who obviously Myles Garrett's great. Rumors about Aaron Donald coming back, that'd be cool. And then, like you said, they traded for McDuffie, and then they took another one of the Chiefs cornerbacks. So, they're built to win right now. They kind of, took a lot from the Chiefs. I'm not really that worried about the Seahawks, and no disrespect to the Seahawks. They were great last year, and it's just, look at the Seahawks. I'm not, afraid of them like I, should be. I think Darnold's good, and he kind of proved he can, not see ghosts in a big game. So I think the Seahawks are going to be a great team. They did lose some pieces that we talked about. Kenneth Walker leaving, I think that's kind of a big deal. I mean, Jadarian Price was a backup on Notre Dame, so I'm not super hyped about him on the Seahawks right now. So I don't know. I think JSN might take a step back. They lost their offensive coordinator. That's a big deal because we see all the time these teams like lose offensive. Look at the Eagles. They lose their offensive coordinator and then they suck the next year. So we'll see if they made the right pick. And every time we win a Super Bowl, it's so hard to repeat because teams are just vying for whoever won and picking off a coordinator or picking off like a certain player. Happens all the time. I'm not worried about. I'm not that like scared of the Seahawks if I'm the Rams, to be honest. I think they're a really good team. I still think there'll be a really good defense, and offensively, Darnold's good. JSN's really good. I think Shaheed, keeping him was actually pretty cool. Barner seems like a good young tight end. It's just, now it's Jay Price and Charbonnet off the Achilles. I don't know if the run game's going to be there. I don't think they're going to, I don't know. It seems like a lot to ask of the Seahawks. I think the Rams are clearly the best team in the NFL right now. I don't even know who you would consider unless the Eagles figure out the offensive coordinator situation. If they can actually get a good offensive coordinator, Eagles, Rams. That'd be my guess.
Okay. Interesting. Well, we could talk about the Eagles in a bit, maybe, if you don't want to bring them up. But
I definitely don't bring them up, Joe. You know how I feel.
Okay, well, maybe my next one we'll talk a little Eagles next time it comes to me. But yeah, you mentioned just with the play calling, I think Sam Darnold is here to stay, like as a productive starting quarterback. However, I don't know if it's a guarantee that we're going to see the level of efficiency that he displayed in the playoffs last season. I mean, he had 14 interceptions and 11 fumbles in the regular season. He had 0 interceptions and 1 fumble in the playoffs. Not to be disrespectful, but that's like bordering on a Nick Foles level transformation for me in the postseason. Where
I was going to say Joe Flacco.
Sure, that too. Then that's actually a better example because Joe Flacco continued to be a starting quarterback for a very long time, and I think Sam Darnold will do the same. But I do think he's reached a level of play that I'm not sure we're going to continuously get, especially because Clint Kubiak is no longer there. Brian Flores is coming over from the 49ers. He was their tight ends coach from 2022 to last season, and last season he also worked as the run game coordinator. So he goes from that to the new offensive coordinator. Not exactly a position that worked a lot with the quarterbacks. So now we're asking him to elevate Sam Darnold the way Clint Kubiak did. I'm not sure. Plus, Kyle Shanahan is kind of the guy who makes it happen in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. Also, too, like, I don't think the Niners had a good run game last year. That was kind of the whole thing. It was McCaffrey couldn't run the ball. If they threw it to him 1 yard in front, great. It's like they had a great run game. It's someone just doesn't scream like promising, coach. You know what I mean? So, or a coordinator, sorry. But like, it's not I'm just a little surprised by that. I'm not like, oh, cool. You got that the tight ends and the running back or the run scheme guy from the Niners who couldn't run the ball last year, Kind of weird. So I think like just they're due to kind of like, I think JSN, it's going to be hard to replicate that. Same with Darnold with what he did in the postseason. The run game, I think, is going to be worse. The defense, I think it's going to be great, like schemed up great, and probably going to be a top tier defense. But especially in the playoffs, that defense felt like insanely awesome. I think that might a little bit, just you always lose some people.
They lost 3 starters from last year's defense. So
like that. It's what happens. And unless you have someone like, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes that can just elevate when you need it, I don't think Darnold's that. I think he's just a good quarterback who had a great run in the playoffs, and they were very well coached. I think they're a very well coached team again. No shame to the Seahawks. I think they're still going to be a good team. It's just, you look at the Rams right now, and assuming Stafford stays healthy, and assuming Puka doesn't, have some random injury, because that guy has more random injuries than anyone, and assuming Devontae doesn't age overnight, you're going to have the best quarterback with arguably the best receiver, with one of the greatest receivers ever, Devontae, with a very interesting offense, with maybe one of the greatest offensive coaches, I would say right now for sure. And the whole like 13 personnel thing with like adding the tight ends, they got another tight end in the draft. It's like they're going all in on the system. And it really, really worked last year, probably better than any other team with that style. And I think it's only get better the more they do it.
Yeah.
And defensively, they had no corners and they just got 2 from the Chiefs. So I'd say the Rams are clearly the team to beat. We'll see if they... I don't think it's anything about the Seahawks. I think it's mostly of, can the Rams stay fully healthy to do it? Because if they do, I would be stunned if the Seahawks were able to stay on top.
Yeah. I would, to answer my own question, but I would pick the Rams right now to to definitely, I think, win the NFC at the very least and make the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. I mean, that's where I'm at. You mentioned the 13 personnel. I love what they're doing there, and they didn't really tap into it fully until the second half of the season when Corum became more part of the offense. I think we see that all season this year. Just to me, both sides of the ball, top up or top to bottom, I just think they're the best team, at least in that conference.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see great battles between those two teams again, but I think this time around it could be the Rams' turn to go all the way.
It's really tough because I think even last year they were the better team. They just lost the game.
Yeah, it's
That makes
possible.
sense.
Definitely possible.
It's one game. They could have easily won that game last year, and I think they're probably the better team, but Seahawks got the better of them. But now Rams, I'd say, got better. Seahawks a little bit worse. We'll see how it goes this year.
Yeah. So what do you got?
All right, next one. This is kind of related to what we're saying. We kind of talk about both teams, but I'm gonna say, is this the beginning of this huge thing of parity in the NFL? I would say they normally have a bunch of different teams who are good but in the NBA we've seen it now where it's a different winner every year. With the NFL last year, the Seahawks and the Patriots, two very under the radar teams. This year, I would say we just talked about the Rams. They were the only team that I would say I feel really confident about. I could genuinely see a bunch of different teams winning this year outside. If it's not the Rams, I have no idea who I'd pick. So I'd say, is this the most wide open it's been? Might be the way to phrase it. Is this just the age of parity? Is this a fluke? Is this something going on with paying these quarterbacks and everything else is going, whatever? I don't know. But it's a bunch of these divisions I'm looking at and I'm I can see this team winning. It's probably the Bills, but then the AFC North is always random. Last year would have thought the Ravens or Bengals. No, it was the Steelers. AFC South, they had two teams make the playoffs, but the Colts are right there. The AFC West, the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders are supposed to be good. Chargers are good. The NFC side, you have the Eagles and the Cowboys and the Commanders if Jaden's healthy. That could be interesting. The NFC North, Lions, Bears, Packers, Vikings. Hello.
We're the best division in the league, I think.
Yeah, the NFC South, it's okay, none of them are great, but, they're all not terrible now. They're just all kind of mid now. Yeah. And then the NFC West, we just talked about Rams, Seahawks, Niners, and Cardinals. So it really feels even each division, it's I don't know who's going to win it. I have no idea. I would say the best team in the NFL is probably the Rams. Seahawks are up there, but it's they're in the same division. They have a harder schedule. It's this is the most wide open it's felt. Because even with the Rams, we just talked about, they have a lot of question marks. They have the most talent probably, but their two best players in offense are injury prone, and they're all older. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And, people are going to say the NFL always has parity, and that's very much true from a 1 through 32 standpoint. But think about it. I mean, the Chiefs, the Eagles, a couple, last decade, the Patriots, there's always teams that are there. The 49ers even have been, even though they have their bad years, then they respond with a good year.
Yeah.
So there's definitely teams that are there most years. I think that what you're talking about is more of, I agree with you that last year I felt it, and I kind of feel it going into this year that I agree with you. It's kind of wide open who can get to the Super Bowl. I already mentioned it earlier with the AFC. I especially feel that way, but the NFC, if Stafford were to, you mentioned it, Stafford coming into several of these recent seasons, it's he was dealing with an injury in the offseason. If age catches up to him and the Rams take a step back and maybe Sam Darnold takes a step back because of the offense changing, okay. If it's not one of those two teams, who's it going to be? It's not obvious. So, and the thing is, we talk NBA all the time. There's a clear reason for the NBA's parity. They changed the rules.
Yeah.
The NFL, I think it's all luck. It's a Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL, and the Chiefs aren't as good as they were now. It's I think the Ravens have had some weird things go on the past couple of years, and now maybe they're not as much of a contender. Just you go on down the line, the Eagles with A.J. Brown, that whole situation. If A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts were best friends, maybe the Eagles would still be a top tier, unquestioned contender. So I don't think there's a NBA, second apron type reason for this sense of uncertainty. It's more of just it's kind of cool that it's just because teams are maybe making good decisions, or conversely, maybe there's just some bad luck for some teams that previously were at the top consistently.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was like we saw the same teams for a while. It was always like Chiefs, Bills, and then you just take the Bronco or the Bengals. You take the Ravens, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like that age of quarterbacks we talked about. A lot of their teams were making win now moves to try to win in this window with this quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and then do those things, and that kind of spreads the wealth to the other teams for the future. And now those teams still good, but they're kind of past their window, and a lot of these other teams are now who were rebuilding are starting to come up. And right now, it's went from like this to more. It's now
Mm-hmm.
more like here, where it's like they might pass them. And literally, if Stafford gets hit, I mean, it's football. If he gets tackled one time awkwardly and he's done, the Rams suck.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing is, this is people fall off. Like Tom Brady's last year in Tampa, he was he was still pretty decent, but it wasn't the MVP candidate he was the year before. Peyton Manning in Denver, like his last year, they had to drag him to that Super Bowl. And you go on your guy Drew Brees, guys will be playing just as good as they ever have, and then all of a sudden, just when they're in their late 30s, early 40s, Brett Favre's another one. Like it just goes away
Yeah.
as really quickly, but you wouldn't have expected it. I'm not predicting that. I mean, Stafford just threw either 45 touchdowns last year
Yeah.
and like single digit interceptions. Like I'm not gonna stand here and say he's gonna fall off this year, but I'm just saying you never know what could happen, whether it's an injury or just maybe he just all of a sudden isn't going to be that same guy. It's something to look at, but yeah, I agree with you. If that comes to pass, then I have no
Yeah.
clue what's going on.
Yeah, it's usually like, all right, I could see like 2 to 3 teams per conference winning. And this year it's like, I could realistically see probably like 6 from each conference winning. If it's not the Rams, if it's not them, I could talk myself into literally probably almost any team from the NFC North and every team from the NFC West besides the Cardinals.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's crazy. And then you still have the Eagles.
Yeah.
Then I'm not going to talk myself into any team from the NFC South. That's the only one that I'm not going to talk myself into a Saints Super Bowl.
Tyler Shuck, though. Tyler Shuck's here.
I love him. I love him. He's including my quarterbacks I'm excited about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like NFL wise, so it's 3 from the NFC West I could see. I'm not going to pick the Vikings. So another 3 from the NFC North and then Eagles. That's 7 from the NFC side. AFC, I can see Bills. I don't want to say Patriots, but like from the AFC North, I would say Burrow and Lamar. If both of them just have like a good year and the teams are good.
Yeah.
The AFC, I would say Texans and Jags. And then the West, you have Broncos and Chiefs and Chargers.
And the Chargers, yeah.
That's 8 from the AFC and 7 from the NFC. That's kind of crazy.
Hopefully that means we're in for a really exciting and unpredictable season. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I mentioned, we were just talking about the Eagles as one of those teams in the NFC that could, if everything goes right, be one of those contenders. But a lot has changed in Philadelphia. We mentioned A.J. Brown has been traded, but now Eagles fans hated their offensive coordinator last year in Kevin Patullo, rightfully so. But there's, Sean Mannion isn't a proven offensive coordinator either. He's coming in. And what I forget the exact amount of years, but it's like Jalen Hurts has had a different play caller for like 9 straight seasons or 8 straight seasons. It's something along those lines. I don't remember the exact number, but he just constantly is getting a new offensive play caller installed for him, going back to college. Saquon is coming off a down year after his record-setting year in Philadelphia, his debut season when they win the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts had, if you look at actually some of the advanced metrics, his worst season since his rookie season last year. And you just have some guys aging out, some guys dealing with injuries. Lane Johnson's probably the biggest one of them. He only played 10 games last year. So, and Jeff Stoutland, who's been their offensive line coach, the kind of the mind behind the Eagles' elite O-line for over a decade now, no longer the offensive line coach in Philadelphia. So a lot of moving parts. But at the same time, there's a winning infrastructure here. Like these guys have won a Super Bowl, they've been to 2, and they at least are in the hunt for their division title every single season. So Chris, I guess I know you're not a big Eagles guy, but just when you look at this team, they take A.J. Brown away. You were talking about earlier the distraction he caused. They draft Mekhi Lemon. They sign some role player. That's not the right word. It's not basketball, but just some, lower tier receivers to kind of maybe, give them some more depth at the position. Just do you think the Eagles got better with an addition by subtraction, or do you think there's still too many questions here?
Oh, they definitely got worse. I think their offensive line coordinator leaving was actually a huge deal because he was like the secret MVP of like the whole entire staff that they treated poorly because I think I was listening on the Ringer Fantasy Football. They talked about him saying like they made him the run game coordinator, but didn't let him do anything, and he was like, "I don't want to be associated with this run game, which is terrible."
Yeah.
Because like he didn't let him control it. I think Sirianni has to go, and then let's start there. Let's start there.
Sirianni
I
talking
think
about
Sirianni's gone.
his Chat GPT locker room speeches the other day. Did you see
Really?
that? Did you see
No.
that? He said he uses like AI to come up with sports like triumphant sports stories to tell the team. I was like, why would you say that
Does he
out
try to
loud?
piss off the whole entire world?
I think so. I think that's his whole
Like, I
thing.
think he's actively trying to get like hated in Philly. Even though he won a Super Bowl, he might be the most hated quarterback coach in Philly.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
I mean, AJ Brown was really good for them. I think 2 years ago was great. It's just last year, I don't think they had the right offensive system in place. He gets frustrated because he's not getting his.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love Jalen Hurts. I used to like him a lot as a person. Thought he was a good quarterback. 2 years ago, really frustrated me. Last year, I was like, "Yep, this is what I expected from him." It's rough. And Mekhi Lemon falling to them at 20, just normal Eagles stuff. You're watching, and you're like, "Someone take him. Someone take him for the Eagles. Someone." And then, of course, he goes. It's like, how does this happen?
It's Howie
Happened.
Roseman and Sam Presti. They do it every time.
But it's not even like, wow, great pick by Howie Roseman. It's like obvious pick by Howie Roseman. How did no one else pick him? Jalen Carter, the same thing. It's like, hey guys, like I know he had some off the field things, but like don't let him go to the Eagles. And he does, and he falls to 8. And it's like, how does this always happen to the Eagles? Sam Presti made his luck by trading Paul George for everything possible, basically. And then you have Howie Roseman just like, this guy LeBron fell to me at the 20th pick. Oh, let me take him. It's like, oh wow, what a genius.
So Mekhi Lemon is LeBron James, is what you're saying.
No, but the point is like these great people that like fall to them every time. It's like what do they do? They trade up like a few spots or something. Like they hopped over the Steelers, but it's like
right, yeah.
He still fell to 20, and I thought most people thought he was going to go before that.
Yeah.
So he's a good GM, obviously, but just some of it's just luck too. Of like, you got to be kidding me! It's always the Eagles who get him. Mekhi Lemon likes to run short routes over the middle of the field. Jalen Brown doesn't throw in the middle of the field, so we'll see how that goes. I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts fan. I like Saquon, but at this point, I usually feel like Saquon just kind of like comes in waves. This is the first year there where I don't really feel like he's gonna bounce back. He's older, so whatever. But like usually he'll be coming back from an injury, and then he's kind of But then the next year, it's like, all right, now he's fully recovered. He was healthy last year.
Yeah.
People were speculating an injury because he got so many touches the year before. Last year, he stayed healthy. He just didn't look the same, and the offensive line was worse. I don't think the offensive line's gotten any better. As you mentioned, Lane Johnson's getting older, and they lost offensive line coach. That's going to be a huge hit to them. Saquon, I don't think he's going to – I think it's going to be like last year, Saquon wasn't bad. I'm not saying he was bad, but he wasn't what he was 2 years ago. I think the running game's going to be the same or worse. I can't see their passing game being better. I can't. Just being honest, they have losing A.J. Brown, replacing with Mekhi Lemon. I think A.J. Brown fits way more Jalen Hurts more than Mekhi Lemon. I think if they just have the right offensive coordinator who could scheme things up, that's a big improvement. I don't know if they have it. I'm going to say that Eagles probably win the division, but lose, round 1 or 2 of the NFL playoffs because I can't see it.
I can see that. My hope for them, now Sean Mannion, I can briefly talk on him. He's coming from my Packers, but I mean, Sean Mannion was last in the NFL in 2023 as like a practice squad quarterback in Seattle. And, he was the quarterback's coach last year, and he was an offensive assistant the year before, but that means he was under Matt LaFleur, but then he was also under Adam Stenovich, the offensive coordinator. I'm not crediting Sean Mannion for Jordan Love's play. So at that point, it's like, I'm not saying now Kevin Patullo was just reprehensible as the offensive coordinator. So you'd have to imagine that Sean Mannion, who's been coached by Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay, and he's worked for Matt LaFleur, you'd have to imagine there's something going on in his brain that like he's going to at least be semi-normal when it comes to play calling. I do think he'll be better than Kevin Patullo, but he's not proven. Like, I don't know if he's going to be able to elevate the run game back to where it was. I don't know if he's going to be able to elevate Jalen Hurts and help him bounce back. And kind of repair some of his reputation. My hope for Jalen Hurts, who, say what you will, is a winning quarterback. Like, we know he just wins. He's just been winning his whole career. I think this much deeper passing game where Devontae Smith, I think he's not A.J. Brown, but I think he's ready to be a number one receiver. You mentioned that they kind of, got Mekhi Lemon at a great value. And then just some of these lower, like these number three, like Dontavian Wicks, I think is solid enough. He's had good games in Green Bay. I think he's better than who the Eagles have had behind Brown and Smith in the past. Hollywood Brown, Super Bowl experience there. And they drafted the tight end, Eli Stowers, as well. So just a lot more depth than they did last year, where it felt like it was a lot of just forcing it to A.J. Brown and forcing it to Devontae Smith. And that is where I have the hope. It's just we laid out all the issues, including the head coach, who I don't trust as well either. I know he's won a Super Bowl, but it's just kind of like you said, he's kind of, to me, he's a lame. Like, it reminds me of Budenholzer when the Bucks won. It was like, okay, he won, but it's like we're not feeling great about him anyway.
Yeah, he was going to get fired until they won, and then it's like, never mind, he's staying.
And it was Sirianni was the same thing. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of just pendulum swinging. Like, it could go one way or the other with a lot of this for the Eagles. I think they benefit from playing in a division that, if they were in the Packers division, I'd be a little more worried about them. But I think being in the East, there's decent teams, but they're decent teams the Eagles always beat up. And I think they can still, like you said, win the division.
Yeah, and I think fire Sirianni, then talk to me about them winning a Super Bowl. In the meantime,
sure,
you can talk me into a decent record just based on like circumstance and the infrastructure that they have, the talent alone. But that's what's the difference between them being great and them not being great is just who's the offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore, okay, cool, Super Bowl.
Right.
Patullo,
Gene Steichen, make a Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and then you have Ken Patullo, and it's like, okay, first round flame out. Like, that's how it goes.
I believe we're down to our last two. What you got?
I have. Is this whole like passing game, this passing era, like officially dead? Because we've seen recent years, the scoring's gone down, passing keeps going down. We remember the days of Drew Brees and Tom Brady, and they'd like both be like over 5,000 passing yards a season. It was great. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, it's like, oh, can a guy hit 4K? Can a guy hit 4K passing yards? If they do, that's a lot. But back then, it was like, wow, statistically, we had a bunch of quarterbacks having put up crazy numbers. I think it probably peaked, or not peaked, but like ended in 2021. Scoring was really high, the 2021-22 season. Mm-hmm. After that, it's kind of gone down, down, down. And that's usually because like the Chiefs came in with Mahomes. They were stretching the field. There was a whole new offense. And then we've seen in the last few years, the defense has changed. They like do like the two guys, like two highs, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they keep everything in front of them. And then we see a lot more like short passes, dinks and dunks, because that's like the way you have to score. But that usually leads to like less scoring and more like longer drives. And I'm going to be honest, in the playoffs, even with Josh Allen, the whole system, every offense is now built around like, just keep the chains moving, don't turn the ball over, and like play safe. And that's what it feels like offenses have been lately. And like, obviously they're never trying to turn the ball over, but it seems like in recent history of just this playoffs, it was about not making a mistake rather than like, hey, Drew, your team's going to allow 40 points, but you're going to have to score 42 and you can win this game. And then you let Drew Brees go out there and throw for 400 yards in a game. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, Darnold, don't do anything crazy. If it's a wide open pass right in front of you to 5 yards, great. Hand the ball off, great. Don't do anything else. Mm-hmm. That kind of seems like the offenses now have been like kind of like simplified and very like, baby proofing the house of like, don't do anything bad and we'll be good.
Well, that's why everybody loves having the Bengals guys in fantasy, because they're just slinging it down the field, and then their defense gives up 50 points, so then they miss the playoffs.
That's the one, and I just think like it's fun seeing that. That's kind of what I grew up with watching Drew Brees was like. Yeah. Do you know Drew Brees has the most games played? Well, the most wins and the most losses separately, with his team allowing 35 or more points.
Wow, that's incredible.
He owns both records. He has the most wins with his teams allowing 35 plus points and the most losses with his teams allowing 35 more points.
Yeah.
That means together he has by far the most games with his defense allowing 35 points. Love you, Drew. Anyways, that used to be the way the NFL was, and now it was kind of boring sometimes where I'm just like, guys, should we score a touchdown or we could really milk the clock here and then take a knee? And it's like, it just feels very like the new offensive scheme or analytics is all about like minimizing mistakes and turnovers. And that's lead to like a very simple, safe offense, which I get it if it helps you win. But as just a like consumer of the product, I'm more of a fan of like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase chalking it deep.
Yeah. I mean, you'll get your odd performance every now and again, but yeah, it's pretty much that's consistently how most teams have played it. And this is like the Mahomes thing is people look at those first few years of his career and the stats and they're like, well, he's not as good. It's like, I think the past year or two, he's no longer been the best. I think Josh passed him, but for most of this decade, even though he wasn't throwing up 40-ish touchdowns, 50 touchdowns, like he was still the best quarterback, best player in the league. He just had to make different decisions because people weren't giving him the layup to Tyreek Hill all the way down the field anymore. It's never going to go back to like how it was in the 80s when like they're just throwing. That's the thing. It's like the stats have gone down to a degree where the passing yards aren't the same, but the quarterbacks are smarter now. So there's still not as many turnovers where, you look at John Elway at the beginning of his career, you can't even compare him to players now because he's thrown so many interceptions, but he was still regarded as an elite quarterback. And it's just the NFL more than any sport. It's like that. It's like, how are the defenses playing? What systems work? What systems are, in vogue, so to speak. And it's just more than any sport. It's like comparing the stats between eras. You have to really keep the context in mind.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it now just because I think this is fascinating. Okay. So this last regular season, Stafford led the league with 4,707 yards. The next closest was Goff, actually, with 4,564. But Stafford was at 4,700. Going back to, the 2021.
I'll briefly say real quick, like 4,700 is a ton, but think about how little of that is coming on like 50-yard bombs. That's a lot of just Puka Nacua 9-yard catches over and over and over again.
Yeah, and then on top of that, there's only 6 guys above 4,000, by the way.
Yeah.
6 guys above 4,000. In 2021, Tom Brady led the league with 5,300, which is... wow. And then you had Herbert, who had 5,014. And then you had Stafford was at 4,800. Mahomes, 4,800. And Derek Carr, 4,800.
My guy.
And then you had 10 people above 4K. But you literally had 2 people in 5K. And Stafford, who I would say last year looked better than he did in 2021, arguably.
Yeah. Still
put up like 100 less yards. Just because the style, the way defenses are now, and the way offenses are scheming is very different. So I'm just curious, like, it's waves. It's offenses go up, they find something new that works. Defenses then figure it out, and then offense goes back down, and then the offenses adjust. And I think we'll see, like, the Seahawks probably are right now the best at schematically doing it. The Texans are probably the best talent. The Seahawks are like designed for like current offense. We'll see what changes. Is the offense going to change? Is this going to be a lower offense for a few years? Not that it's bad. It's just, it does feel like we used to have Drew Brees throwing 5,000 yards every year. And like Stafford last year, who won MVP, literally is at 4,700. Yeah, Drew Brees had 5,476 in 2011.
How many 5,000-yard seasons does Drew Brees have? Is it like 3?
No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, 5.
And then he had one where he was 50 yards shy, which really bothers me.
Yeah.
Drew, my king. And then in 2017, that's when he started to fall off because he was down to 4,300.
Because they were good again. That's why he was falling off.
They were good, but he has said like around that, I think it was 2016, like his last 5,000-yard year, he was like, I forget what they called it. They had this one route that they would have for like someone just to go deep or something. And he was like, we can't do that anymore. Like I can't do it physically have those long shots where it's like, oh, cool. Brandon Cooks just broke loose for 90 yards. It's like, yeah, that's done.
Yeah.
Now it's Kamara and Michael Thomas, which still worked out great, but we've seen offenses kind of change this direction. I think there was this interesting bigger picture. It's like, passing does definitely seem to be down this year from 5 years ago now, which feels like yesterday. that we were like freshmen in college, and it was like whatever. But
yeah, I mean that Chiefs Bills playoff game where they just like couldn't stop scoring touchdowns. Maybe that was one of the games that made teams start to rethink this.
Yeah. Now it's like, all right, nothing over your head. And then on offense, it's like no turnovers. And nowadays, after the first touchdown, the Chiefs would just ran the ball with short passes and then tried to like keep it to like 2 possessions left. That stuff is like great to win. Just as a viewer, you're like, it does feel a little different. Where back then there were more shootouts, which were honestly just more fun.
One last point I wanted to talk about. I'm a Packers fan. Want to talk about my Packers because I think on paper they could be a contender this year, but we have a ton of injuries. So my last, kind of storyline I wanted to look at is, can the Packers star power get healthy? Can they get on the field? Micah Parsons, he tore his ACL against Denver in week 15. Tucker Kraft tore his ACL on November 2nd. Josh Jacobs, who has been a premier running back for us, is in significant off the field, potential legal issues. Could he get suspended midway through the year, before the year? I don't know. I mean, we're kind of running out of time for before the year suspension, but it's not, we don't really know what's going to happen yet. The NFL hasn't really made it clear whether or not they're going to wind up suspending Josh Jacobs. Even Devontae Wyatt was coming off a season-ending injury. He's one of our better defensive linemen. Just across the board, the Packers have some really strong talent, and they were, until those injuries, one of the better NFC teams last year. But then they wound up losing, 4 straight games to end the season, I believe. They went out pretty sad, blowing that lead to the Bears, a team that we've beaten consistently for a decade, and they embarrassed us in the postseason. And now I just kind of look, we lose Romeo Doubs, who was such a consistent force for us. And now it's like we need Christian Watson, who's never been healthy, to be the number 1 receiver. We need Matthew Golden, who was good in the Bears game in the playoffs, but that was pretty much his only good game all year. We need him to fulfill his potential. And we need Josh Jacobs, who we don't even know if he's going to be able to play. He was kind of dinged up last year anyway at the end of the season. If he's not on the field, this team has no running back. I think they need to make a trade if Josh Jacobs doesn't play. Just, Chris, when you look at my Packers, we mentioned before how tough the NFC North is. Just, do you think that they even have a chance at contending this year?
What's really tough is after a big injury, like a torn ACL, some guys take a little bit longer to come back. If Micah comes back and he looks great, I feel great about your defense. Tucker Kraft was playing like the best tight end in the NFL, one of the best when he was healthy. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, are they going to be back, and are they going to be back and actually playing like they're fully back? Sometimes it's the year after the injury type of thing. We'll see. I don't know, Joe. I don't really. If you were in any other division, I'd be like, Joe, you'll be fine. By the time the playoffs run around, Micah's going to be back. Kraft is going to be back in full shape. You don't have a lot of leeway, though, because you have the Lions, who, say what you want, they're still good, and they have, I believe, the last place schedule in the division.
Because the Vikings beat them in week 18 and somehow got ahead of them in the standings.
Yeah. So the Lions are going to have an easier schedule. You have the Vikings, who, say what you want about Kyler Murray or whatever, he's still an improvement for them. They still have a lot of talent on that team. And then obviously the Bears are the hot team right now that everyone loves. So it's just, you're probably going to have someone else win the division. Maybe you can win the wild card, but you're in the same conference as the NFC West, which is going to have usually 2 teams minimum this year, 2 teams making the wild card, with Rams, Seahawks, and Niners. One of them's winning. The other 2 probably make the wild card. Mm-hmm. And then you have your division with Lions, Bears, and Vikings. So I don't feel great about your Packers, most because your 2 guys in your team of Kraft and Micah coming off big injuries. And then what are leagues doing right now? What are they that busy doing that there's not one guy that can be like, oh, here's the punishment for Josh Jacobs. Now go ahead and act forward. It's
I think part of it is the legal situation isn't situated, but I'm for example, I remember Ezekiel Elliott got suspended when he didn't even get in any legal trouble. They just suspended him just because it was in the news.
If you know what happens, doesn't matter what the legal side is. You're not punishing him to an actual crime. You're the NFL. It's you did something bad, so at work we're doing this. It shouldn't really matter unless it's completely guilty, which not going to speak about that. Right, but unless he's completely guilty, he's probably have some punishment, but it's hard to know what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the fact that it's not getting resolved is just annoying because, like, oh, cool. Hey, Cardinals, is James Conner available? And that would make me feel better about you guys at the start of the year. Or is,
And that's
I don't
what
know.
I want them to do, by the way.
Yeah, like I figure because the Cardinals have Tyler Algier, who they just signed, James Conner, and then they all, oh, cool, we just drafted Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
Like, they can spare one. You know what I mean?
I would even take Trey Benson. Like, give us one of Trey Benson's not awful. Like, he's their fourth running back. I don't know what that Arizona. They're a mess. We don't need to talk about them, but they got
but it's just like not being able to do anything because you don't know, kind of messes you guys up. And then receiver wise is tough. I've never known what to do with your receivers. I liked Matthew Golden, and he didn't do anything last year. I don't think he caught a touchdown, did he?
I forget. Did he wind up getting one in the playoff game?
He might have in the playoff game, but I remember the whole fantasy regular season. I was waiting, and then the Cowboys game happens. I'm like, has to happen against the Cowboys, and nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, it was rough for him. I mean, he had a couple moments in September, and then he really came through against the Bears in the playoffs. I don't really understand what happened in between all that time, especially because our offense was really efficient last year. Jordan Love had a great year, and he was getting all these other receivers involved. I don't know why they didn't just try to scheme something up for Matthew Golden in a first quarter of a game to try and get him going. They just like kind of let him, I don't know, just like sit there.
Well, yeah. So Christian Watson started the year hurt, right?
Yeah, he came back mid-season.
But then Jaden Reed got hurt after a few games. But that led to Golden actually getting an opportunity, but then they never pushed it with him.
Yeah.
And then Tucker Kraft goes down, and you're waiting. It seemed like he should have been really good. And I don't know if it was him or the team. I don't know. But I think you guys are always decent at the very least. I think if Micah comes back and Kraft can come back and they look healthy, great. But Micah was a late season injury.
Yeah. Well, the rumor, the belief is that Micah's going to miss the first 4 games on the PUP list, and Tucker Kraft is going to be ready week 1. Now, will he be at 100%? Will he be the Tucker Kraft from before? Yeah, we need him to be because he was our best receiver last year. He was our best pass catching option. And he's integral to the run game too, as he's a well-rounded tight end. He does everything. I agree with you. It's going to be tough for us to, especially with the schedule we'll be playing. It's tough for me to assume that they're going to win double-digit games again and be right there because we have so many question marks with guys who are at the heart of the team last year. I mean, besides Jordan, who's the quarterback, like our best players, both sides of the ball are coming off, injuries or in Jacob's case, just a questionable situation. Across the board, there's a lot of questions. And I think Matt LaFleur is a good coach, but I think there's enough circumstances here where kind of like what we just saw with Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh last year, it's like maybe it's out of his control if we miss the playoffs or have a lesser season, but it doesn't mean he'll be here. And that's kind of where my brain is starting to go. I'm really having some serious concerns about them this year.
Yeah, this is probably the worst I felt about them in a little bit. Just with Micah, Kraft, and Jacobs.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. It's gonna take a lot. Yeah.
Them having finished second, at least if they finished last in the division, that would help. And now it's you still finished too good to the point of you're gonna have a tougher schedule too, where it's at least the Lions, once they were done at the end, I don't think they were trying to lose, but they did, which was great for them because then now they're gonna have an easier schedule, and that's great.
Yeah. And going 9-8 with the 4th place schedule is just so valuable. So we'll see how they do.
I mean, the same thing. They at the end of the year, the teams all finished really close together, but they had the last place. I'm like, yes, perfect. Yeah. You got a better pick than all them. You get a better schedule than all them, but I still feel good about the team. That's ideal setup.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a quick one. So this wasn't me and you aren't going to be really discussing this, but I think what's going to be one of the biggest storylines that I don't really care about, but the whole turf versus grass thing with the FIFA World Cup coming in. And for all of the soccer games, they use grass. And then they're we can't use grass for the NFL games. That spurred a lot of debate because it's you want to put these soccer players on turf, but you tell them it's totally fine. But the NFL players, they have to play on turf. MetLife, they got grass in there for the games. And everyone's so mad because you can't do that on Sundays.
Yeah.
So
Was that like an NFL versus FIFA like rules thing? Like, did FIFA demand they put grass in? I guess.
I don't know what was the ruling entity on that. Probably, but it's like at the end of the day, they're like, if you put grass in for them, you could do it for us too. Like we're the ones that play there. But I guess for the World Cup, they're like, it's gonna bring in so much. They're like, whatever. But and also too, like it's not like this. It's not like the teams deciding it, but it's just like the NFL isn't like doing it. I'm sure FIFA like covered whatever it was. So it's like I'm not too familiar with that whole side because it's not my biggest thing. But like the amount of topics of NFL players tweeting about the turf thing was insane because it was like you could clearly do it. You choose not to, but you can. Yeah. And the other point that I have, the Saints, Joe, you talk about your Packers real quick.
Yeah.
They're the only team in the NFC South that I feel like is trending up. I think every other team is trending down. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel good. Bryce Young and the Panthers, not worried. Not worried. The Bucks, Baker had a rough end of the year. We'll see. They lost Mike Evans. I'm excited. And then the Falcons have Tua and Penix as their quarterback. I feel good about that. I feel good. Yeah. It's just Tyler Shuck, second year, and he only played like half the season, whatever, and he played pretty well. So, all right, vibes are good. Chris Olave is going to get extended for way too much money, but it's going to happen anyways. A-Chain's pretty good. Kamara just came back. Cam Jordan came back, which I thought he was gone, but he came back. They only really lost to Mario Davis and Alontae Taylor. Taylor got way overpaid for Tennessee. Fair. And Demario Davis, love him as a human. Very good still at the NFL. Jets paid him a lot of money. And I was like, all right, I don't want to pay him that much. So happy that the Saints are going to win the division for the first time and end their playoff drought. Fully confident, no questions asked. Just drafted they just drafted a receiver. So we have like a fun young rookie to actually watch. Very excited. So let me know if you think they're going to win the division.
Yeah, I think the Saints, I think it'll be them or Carolina. And I think they have they had one of the best free agent classes in the league this year with their signing. So Devon Achane, or oh my god, not even Devon Achane. I can't even Travis Achane.
Yeah.
Travis Achane. I think it's funny that everyone's like Devon. He should start calling himself Devon Etienne. But that'll be interesting to see how that like with Kamara plays out. Obviously, Travis is the better player, but how that situation. But no,
David Edwards too.
I thought this would. What did you say?
David Edwards at guard. That's a big signing.
That was a big signing from Buffalo. I thought you were going to bring it up sooner, but yeah, I think that's the Saints as like a worst to first division winner. I think is very much in play. And I definitely think they could make the playoffs. Yeah.
Thank you. I look at Carolina. I think they've done a lot right. I'm sorry. I look at Bryce Young and I'm like, I'd rather have Tyler Shuck right now. I don't know if that's a real question. Just like seeing him against the Rams, it's like, oh, maybe they could pull off the unthinkable, and then it's like you're like he doesn't got it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
At least I don't know if Shuck doesn't have it or not. With Bryce, you're like, this just isn't.
Yeah, and Kellen Moore, I think, is just. I mean, I like Dave Canales too, but I think I trust Kellen Moore to put together a nice offense for it.
Yeah, so. I love that man, and also too now, like he's actually able to build a team with what he wants. There's like Achane. He likes running up the middle, and that's what Kellen Moore does better than Kamara, who's more of an outside runner. Like schematically, he fits his system more. I think Jordan Tyson's going to fit well, and like now they can use Olave in other ways. And Tyson is right twitchy guy that always just gets open. So I'm excited. Juwan Johnson looked like LeBron last year.
Juwan Johnson was like randomly really good last year. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think the Saints will be right in the race this
Oscar
year.
Delt, one of the fastest tight ends. Oh my God. He'll be good.
Okay.
Get him.
I think that means it's time to end the podcast. So, Chris, thank you for joining me on this debut episode of Tuman Talkin Touchdowns. And thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to follow Tuman Talkin Sports on Instagram. And other than that, stay tuned for next time. I'm going to be coming back. I'm going to be previewing each of these divisions. We're going to be going a little bit deeper on some of these teams. So until then, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.